Well, hello there, and I do hope you're all well. Now, Tory Minister Amari Trewhelyan's epic fail at actually trying to defend a destructive Brexit to the economy in the cross-party select committee meeting for international trade. Well, let's just say it was quite an embarrassment. It was just painful. And let's just say Angus Brendan McNeill took her to the absolute cleaners. Enjoy.
Welcome to the International Trade Committee's evidence session for UK trade negotiations. In the UK trade negotiations agreement with Australia inquiry, we have the Secretary of State giving evidence again. We saw you this morning. Thank you very much, Secretary of State, for coming to this, our final session. We have had our words about this in the New Zealand, so we'll maybe skip over that. I just want to ask you a number of things about this. I mean, following a report last week on what's happened and the subsequent correspondence, can you tell us, will the government extend the CRAG period to allow the House meaningful time to consider a report?
We won't be extending the CRAG period for this FTA, I'm afraid. We want to crack on, and we have followed the framework, and I hope that, and I look forward, as I say, I apologise for not having been able to read your report last night, but circumstances overtook me, but I look forward, and I will be reading it this evening and working with the team to give you a full and thorough response to it as quickly as we can. I've had literally a quick chance to read through some of the suggestions, and it looks like you have indeed, pulled out and given some really interesting and important questions. It being the first, from scratch, that there was, a really important review to do that. So thank you for what looks to me to be a very thorough view and testing some of those broader issues around trade deals, which we are very keen to discuss.
We accept flattery at any time.
No, just an honest assessment.
So you've said no. Now the question: will the government table then a substantive motion on the agreement for consideration and a debate between the 13th and 19th of July, so the House can decide whether to delay ratification for the same purpose?
And I know we've exchanged letters on this already. We've been clear that we will seek to schedule a debate and have continue to discuss that with business managers, obviously subject to available parliamentary time, and I'd hope we will be able to have a general debate on that. But we will continue to press the business managers, as I'm sure you and your clerks will too.
So that's a kind of unclear. So given the CRAG is due to expire in 2 weeks, when will you be clear and when will you be able to say?
So as I say, it's not within my gift, I'm afraid, Mr Chairman, to set a date, but we continue to ask the business managers if available government time can be found for that.
You see the kind of difficulty that we have as a committee?
I do, but sadly I am not all powerful in matters of parliamentary time.
Should you not be cracking the whip at the whips inside government? I mean, it is really the tail wagging the dog here.
As I say, we continue, and we've set out, and I know you have raised it, and we continue to raise it with the business managers, that we think it would be a good general debate to have, and there would be many colleagues who would be interested in discussing what is, a really interesting new part of government policy and a new FTA. So we continue to press, and we can work together. We can do it in any number of ways you like. We continue to do so, but we are always at the mercy of the available government parliamentary time set by others than departmental authorities.
I mean, would it help you in your department? Do you think it would help scrutiny of this agreement if the Chamber of the House of Commons was to decide to delay CRAG, given that the Australians wouldn't have it ratified anyway by the first or the second date?
So the Australians are, progressing. As I say, I had the pleasure of meeting my new counterpart, Don Farrell, in Geneva just a couple of weeks ago, and was pleased to hear that they were very keen to crack on, that they had no desire to reopen any parts of it, and that they were very comfortable with the treaty as it stands, and that they would kick off with their parliamentary process.
When do you expect Australia to ratify?
So he wasn't able to be fully precise, but I think they hope to ratify through the course of the autumn. I think they will be ahead of us in that process, because obviously we have to bring in the enabling legislation, and whilst we've presented the bill on the 11th of May, there's the usual process of getting. It's quite a small piece of legislation, as you know, but we need to push that all the way through. So that will, I think, be done, probably completed with royal assent, probably after they have approved theirs. But I hope we'll land as quickly as possible. We know.
Well, it'll be about probably 22nd of November that they would conclude you think this is... I mean, why is this rush going on in the UK to do this without proper scrutiny? What is driving you? Are you driving the whips, or are the whips telling you that scrutiny doesn't matter, get it to the sausage factory of Parliament, that's it?
Well, so quite the opposite. I think it's truly to the point that
so you're telling the whips get it through the scrutiny, the sausage factory of Parliament?
No. I think the scrutiny is, very thorough and intense. And as I say, we have asked if they can find available parliamentary time for a debate, and we will continue to do so. But as I say, sadly, I am not in charge of what is no doubt quite a complex juggling act. Not having been in the Whip's office, I haven't experienced it personally, but I think it's an issue which is considered. So we continue to do that, and we, hope that they will hear our request.
Secretary of State, this has all been done in the background of Brexit, and I think on page 124 of our report it sets out that this agreement is down to be a 0.08 increase to GDP, and that's changed. It's a fourfold increase from your first trade of 0.02% of GDP. But that is against a 5% loss of Brexit. So I'll put it to you, Secretary of State, if you went out and say you're going to the stock exchange perhaps, or you're going to the bookies, or you're going to the horse racing, or whatever you're doing that's £500, and you came back with £8 or £2, which is the equivalent to the 5% of the loss with Brexit, would you think you had a good day?
I remember him asking this at the liaison committee meeting with our bodge, and he went, but yes, it's yes. And I just think, what an idiot.
So fortunately, our amazing British exporters aren't gambling when they look to find new export markets. They are.
But they need the frameworks that you've in place, and the frameworks you've got in place means they've got a 5% hit, and we know trade's down with the European Union. So if you go with £500 and come back with £8 or £2,
exports are up.
The trade gap is there.
Continuing to go up, and we are seeing real growth since before COVID, and we are seeing real growth again, which is exciting. And we are seeing, as I mentioned earlier today, the export support service that we provide. We have seen both a drop in some of the problems that we saw, practical problems at the turnover point.
The reason I ask this question isn't to go down any rabbit holes with you, Secretary of State. The reason I ask this question is the government are selling these trade deals as being something wonderful. And the bluster can hide from the public that these trade deals, and this trade deal, this first trade deal, because you haven't got anything yet, you've committed yourselves in Brexit to losing 5% of GDP. You're coming back with, original figure you had was 0.02% of GDP. Now you've got 0.08% of GDP. This is equivalent to throwing away £500 and coming back with £8 or £2 and saying you've had a good day. Does that strike you as being a good day?
Not for me, it ain't.
So, as I say, Mr. Chair, the question of EU trade continues to grow again, which is really good news. These FTAs are opening up new markets, making it easier for our businesses to either export more in those markets or indeed to discover new markets. That's one of the charges that the DIT is given.
People watching this will be amazed that the simple sum of losing 5% and gaining 0.08% doesn't strike you as a problem. It just doesn't strike
Mr. Chair,
you as a difficulty.
if you would be kind enough to let me complete the sentence.
Sounds like she's getting a little bit brassed off.
EU trade continues and is continuing to grow again now that we are past COVID, and that's great news.
So there's GDP growth from Brexit.
However, when we look at the FTA programme that we are now able to roll out as part of our freedom to do so now that we have left the European Union, the Australia deal was our first, New Zealand the second, and we will be continuing to add to that. CPTPP will be, we hope, one that we will accede to this year, where we open up enormous new markets where we see the growth. For the years and decades ahead. We have the opportunity with the freedom to own our own trade policy to really set in train vast new markets, stripping away market access barriers and tariffs so that our UK exporters can find new economic opportunities so that we can see that growth in GDP across the board. So Australia and New Zealand are just the first two in what will be a broad set of new tools to help businesses to trade more easily across the world. We will continue to have, as our EU neighbours, our European neighbours, the opportunity to trade there, and we have under the TCA framework in which businesses continue to do that. But as the opportunities and the new, the growth in young people, the growth in middle class consumers across the rest of the world grows, I want to make sure that our UK businesses have as easy as access as possible to those markets, so that we can extend our opportunities not only to our European neighbours but to the rest of the world too. So that's what the FTAs are for, and Australian New Zealand are just the first two of what will be, we hope in relatively short order, a really broad range of access to those markets that we haven't reached into before.
I mean, I've heard a lot of words there, and I haven't for offended. I used the phrase Enid, but light in prose. But if we go back to the number, Secretary of State, if you lose, and we accept, I think the government, these are government figures, you lose 5% of GDP, and we equate that to going to the stock exchange, perhaps in your case, and waging £500, and you come back holding 0.08% of GDP, or £8. Is this a good or a bad day for the UK that you've done that? Because this is what Brexit is equivalent to. When we strip away the words, we strip away the prose, you are losing £500. If every £500 you lose the UK, you're coming back with £8 of this trade deal. At best, maybe £2 at your other estimation. Is this a good process? Or should this process, is there a better way of this being done?
Angus, Brendan McNeil, stop being a traitor to your country. You just need to believe more.
With these new trade deals that we're negotiating, we are opening up new markets. This is the first in Australia, New Zealand the second, and there will be many more to come. These will be creating new opportunities to add to UK export growth, and that's really exciting.
They add
we
to
will
5%
be there.
of GDP?
DIT will be there to support those businesses in a number of ways as they look to expand into those new markets. The relationship with our European partners continues to be robust and solid, and as I say, the export figures post-COVID are now back beyond those, and that's really good news as markets are starting to stabilise. The reality is, though, the economic growth opportunities for the long term do not sit with our European partners. Where we see that growth in...
Will you match 5% of GDP with all the trade deals you can possibly imagine?
So I hope it'll be more than that in the medium to long term.
It can't possibly
because there are whole new markets to come, and that is exactly why, having the trade policy, we are working at pace to ensure that we free up those market access
America's
barriers.
a quarter of the world's GDP. What's your GDP gain from a trade deal with America?
So we haven't got the details of it. So
0.2%.
When we come to, we hope, pick up and continue those negotiations that we started a number of years ago. We look forward to looking to what that offers. But the important thing is that those will all be tools to help business to export more easily fantastic British goods and services, and that's what DIT's role and the opportunity that we now have with this freedom of our own trade policy to build that. What we then will be doing, of course, is supporting business to find and discover new export markets, to work in those growing markets in the Indo-Pacific, across Africa, and growing, mature markets like we have with America, to make sure that our exporters can reach everywhere they want to export with as few market access barriers as possible.
Okay, if the DIT crunches the numbers and knows the numbers, can you come back to me on that? Because it appears that the idea that you can get trade deals, even if you get trade deals with every country in the world, you will not make up the Brexit damage, and that is a number fact. Before I take in Sir Mark Kendrick, I just want to ask one other question, Secretary of State. Secretary of State, you might think Brexit's a done deal, and it may well be. But if it's not, where would this deal leave the Australians if the UK was to rejoin the European Union? Has Australia been notified about that, or has that...
Very interesting question.
That been any part of a warning, perhaps, given to Australia?
No.
No. Okay, thank you very much. Sir Mark Hendrick.
Now, the one thing that I have noticed more and more when I've watched, come across these cross-party select committee meetings are the number of MPs from all circles of the political spectrum who you can tell take their jobs very, very seriously, and they're very, very talented. And Angus Brendan McNeil is no exception. You can tell straight away, doesn't suffer fools gladly, and with Anne-Marie Trewhelyan you can tell he sees straight through her nonsense. Hell, I don't even think she even believes half the guff she was spouting either. Painful. But anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video, and until the next time I shall bid you farewell and take care.